Hey everyone, how you doing? Final Cut Friday. We've done these 2 in a row now. We'll see how many we do. We might see how long they last. I'm not going to do them every week because some weeks I'm going to be on during the middle of the week. So I probably wouldn't be doing one in that circumstance. Final Cut Friday. It's kind of a Friday wrap-up as to all the news that's been going on during the week about Final Cut Pro. We'll just get together and have a chat and see what's up. So we've got some, of course, the biggest thing is the Apple event coming up on Monday. Everybody knows that they're going to be doing the MacBook Pros. We know that, but what else are we going to see? Anything else? We'll have to wait and find out. We got our first comment here from Roz. Hi, from the west coast of Canada, Richard. I've never been to the west coast of Canada. I've been to the east coast of Canada above Niagara Falls. When we were children, we visited Niagara Falls and we went into Canada. I think it was, I forget when it was. It's been a long time ago. I haven't been there for quite a while. That is Final Cut Pro TV Live's backyard. I did leaf collection yesterday, but the leaves are still coming down. You can see to the right, there is a red maple tree. Red maple. We got another hi. Kayans, hi from Somalia. So far, Canada, Somalia, anybody from the US or the UK or Ireland? Tony Oddjobs says, do you think they will reveal an iMac Pro 30-inch M1x? I haven't heard anything about a new iMac. I've heard something about a 32-inch iMac, but not for Monday. I'd be surprised, considering they just released the new iMac, the M1 iMac in the spring, if they now would release a new M1X or M2 iMac this close to that first release. I'd be kind of surprised. I think Monday is going to be MacBook Pro Day. 16-inch, 14-inch MacBook Pro, but as Final Cut Pro people, are they going to demo Final Cut Pro on those new M1X MacBook Pros? And if they do, is it going to be Final Cut Pro 10.6? That's the question. We got hi from Brazil. So we've got listeners all over the place. Eric Emmerich says, I would like a new iMac, but wouldn't mind waiting until next year. So yeah, the M1X iMacs came out in the spring. Was it March, April, May? Maybe, I forget which. We got our friend Yari from Finland, Yari NNN from Finland, watching in, looking at him today. So I want to get everybody's opinion. What do they expect on Monday? All the pundits are saying M1X, MacBook Pros, 14 and 16-inch, with HDMI, with MagSafe, with finally, a 1080p camera. A 1080p camera. They've had a 720p camera all this time, except the iMac Pro came out with a 1080p camera a while back. And I'm not sure what the new ones have. Do the new M1s, are they still 720p? I think they are. I think they are indeed 720p. So finally, we're getting a 1080p camera, an SD card slot, and 3 or more USB 4/Thunderbolt 3 ports. I'd be surprised if they were true Thunderbolt 4 ports. Pleasantly surprised. I'm looking at getting one of the new machines, so we'll have to see how that goes. Let me just pull this in a little bit closer. There we go. Pull the mic in a little bit. So I'm excited. Everybody's excited. Everybody was expecting this October event to happen, and they finally announced it last week. Tony Oddjob says some say the new chipset will be called M2. Do you think this means they will no longer support Intel? No. Tim Cook has already said we're going to be supporting Intel Macs with the OS for another year. So from next WWDC will be year 2. But that version that comes out in 2022 won't come out until the fall of 2022, and that'll be around until the fall of 2023. 2 more years, at least. Tim Cook didn't say only 2 years. He said we're going to support it for years, plural, to come. The OS is going to support Intel versions of the OS for years to come. That's at least 2 more years of in-service OS on Intel. As long as the OS is supporting Intel, I would presume that Final Cut Pro is going to be supporting Intel the same way. 2 years from now, we'll be looking at transitioning over to the Apple Silicon Macs, probably exclusively, because that gives us 3 years since they came out. That makes sense. Any time sooner than that doesn't make any sense. Roz says MacBook Pro and Mac Mini Pro, AirPods 3. So the Mac Mini Pro will be very interesting to me because I will be considering getting a Mac Mini Pro rather than a MacBook Pro, but not really. I really like the MacBook Pro. I like the form factor. I like the portability. I like the fact that I can just take it and go, not worry about cables and monitors and keyboards and stuff. So I'd be very surprised if wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised if I bought the Mac Mini Pro rather than the MacBook Pro. Huh. Are you using a different mic? It doesn't sound as warm as I recall. It's the same mic. Same mic. Let me listen to it a second. Hold on a second. It's the same mic as always. I do mess around with my mic settings quite a bit. So, whatever I like at the moment, that's what I will play with. I put my headphones on and listen. Tony says the Apple XDR monitor is impressive but very expensive. Do you think they will release a cheaper monitor? I absolutely do think they will. Same kind of specs but less money. Absolutely. That's a good point to go along with the Mac Mini especially. Do you think they're going to have any surprises? Do you think they're going to have any surprises Monday? So we know MacBook Pro, 16-inch, 14-inch, probably a Mac Mini, AirPods 3. Are there going to be any surprises? That's my question. Let me see. Looking for... Well, let me do this while I'm looking for it's one thing I'm looking for. So that's that webpage, let me do this. Graphics, that's what I want. Graphics. So the M1x, we know we're getting the M1. Look at that, it's amazing. The microphone's in this view, it wasn't in the other view. Let me see what we got here. So M1x. This is what I wanted to show everybody. This was the 2016 version. This was the October 2016 Apple event. The same is coming up tomorrow. Monday. The exact same event that's coming up on Monday. What did they introduce in 2016? They introduced brand new MacBooks. That was the 2016 15-inch Touch Bar MacBook Pro. Apple event, October, right before the Creative Summit. All of those things are exactly what's happening again. This is what happened. This is the new version of Final Cut Pro, and she goes on to say with the redesigned interface, whatever. They introduced a new version of Final Cut Pro at an Apple event, introducing a new MacBook. In October, right before the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. All of those things are happening again, all those exact things. It's October, they got a brand new MacBook Pro coming out. It's right before the Creative Summit. It's an Apple event. All those things are happening again. Now, there's a couple of scenarios that can happen. Garrett says, one more thing, the new MacBook will have 6 ports. You mean 6 Thunderbolt ports? Is that what you're telling me? That would be incredible. That would be absolutely incredible if it had 6. I'd be happy with 4. I'd be happy, 4 would be great, plus MagSafe, plus the card reader, plus HDMI, plus a 1080p camera. Those are all things that will get me to buy this new MacBook Pro. And here's a couple of other things. These aren't talked about as much. If you have an Apple Card, you can finance it for 3 years, 2 years, maybe 2 years. You can finance it for 0% interest. Apple Card lets you finance Macs and everything you buy from Apple just about 0% interest. It's free money. It's free money. It's not free, and nothing's free, but 0% interest on the Apple Card. So you don't got to come up with the $3,000 or whatever it is, $3,500 for a top-end one right away. You can finance it. Make a payment every month for 24 months. That's something else that's very attractive. I think they'll talk more about Logic and spatial audio on Monday in addition to Final Cut Pro. Logic, absolutely. We could be seeing at some point Logic 7. We're at Logic 6 point something already. So they've jumped Final Cut Pro in numbers. I absolutely expect an update to Logic as well. I guess the question is, I'm crossing everything I have for Monday, absolutely. Nobody should be buying a MacBook Pro today. That's the first advice I'm giving you. Do not buy a MacBook Pro today. Don't do that. Wait till Monday. I'm working with a co-producer on a documentary about a band from Washington, D.C., and his MacBook completely crapped out. It's an old one, I don't know, 2014 something. I said, don't you dare buy one. You wait till I tell you, and I let him know Monday is the day. Now, a lot of times in the past, they've had the MacBook Pro on sale the same day they announced it. That could happen again. I'm just looking at something there. Oh, let me see. What the heck's going on? Oh, whatever. Overhead. Let's do this one. Let me just make one adjustment here. Overhead. Backyard. There we go. I'm not sure why it switched, but it did. This is the backyard around the headquarters. Look at that beautiful red maple tree. Actually, that's a dogwood tree. One of the things that I'm sure we'll be getting in a new version of Final Cut is redoing the audio, a mixer of some sort, Rolls-based mixer. I think they finally worked that out. I feel like my Mac Pro is an obsolete box now, especially with all the benchmarks of these new chips. I can only imagine what M1x will bring. You mean a 2019 Mac Pro? No, it's not obsolete by any stretch of the imagination. They've even talked about the new Mac Pro being Intel for another year or so. We'll see what happens there. Listen, I have 8 PCIe slots in this thing. I have 112 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabyte graphics cards. I might sell it at some point, but I think I'd probably just keep it. I don't think I would get, anything close to what I paid for it. Do you think this time they'll come up with a new design of a MacBook Pro that can really handle Final Cut Pro perfectly? Well, I don't know about perfectly. But I think the new design is going to be, listen, they've had over a year. M1x, the M1s came out in November last year, right? Or December, November, December. So almost a year. They've had a year to work on this. They have the software. They have the OS. Now, I'll be curious, is the new version of Final Cut. Listen, first off, there's been no announcement that there is going to be a new version of Final Cut on Monday. That's my speculation based on 2016, based on things that I'm reading in the tea leaves, based on some things that I'm hearing. I think that if they're going to show a new MacBook Pro, we know that's a given, right? We know that's a given. I mean, as much as possible. Of course, Apple's going to do what they want. What better software to show it off on than Final Cut Pro? There's nothing. What are they going to show? DaVinci Resolve? I mean, they might show it for coloring, but they're going to show Final Cut Pro. Now, the question is, brand new MacBook Pro, old version of Final Cut? Old version of Final Cut that hasn't really been updated in 3.5, almost 4 years? Yes, 10.5 came out, yes. But there wasn't much there, was there? Yeah, it was a lot of work. I keep hearing, oh, you don't know how much work it was. Yes, I do. I know how much work it was. But a lot of work doesn't make a good update by itself. There's things that are a lot of work that it's just like spinning their wheels. So a lot of work that everybody has to do. Yes, I acknowledge that. But there's been no real full point. I'm not talking about 10.4.9, which was a really good update with the proxy reworking. That was a really good update. 10.4.4 was also a really good update. Those were major point updates. I'm talking about a full point. 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4. There were major updates with lots of new features. 10.5 was not like that. I expect 10.6 to be like that once again. They've got the Apple Silicon support out of the way. Now, I'm not saying that if they show a new version of Final Cut Pro, in 2016 it was out. In 2016, when they showed that version of Final Cut, this is the new version of Final Cut Pro. It came out that day. Okay? It came out that day. So, is that going to... Are we going to see that again? Is that going to come out the same day? It certainly could. It certainly could, but I think we're going to at least see it on Monday with the new MacBook Pros. We might see a new version of Logic as well at the same time. Whatever else, they might show, they show Resolve a lot. So it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me to see Resolve the color grading again. Tears says it's been a long time since we heard one more thing. Yes, that was Steve Jobs. I really miss Steve Jobs. Scott Gillies says, I have it on good authority that Apple will be releasing a new version of Final Cut on Monday, and it will be version 11. That could be. I mean, they could switch out of 10 and go to 11. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm just saying 10.6, it seems like an easier jump. It seems like an easier jump to me. 11 is a lot more expectations, aren't they? Let me see something here. Let me pull this up. So I put this out this week. Countdown to Final Cut Pro 10.6. I'm calling it 10.6. If it's 11, that's great. If it's 11, that's fantastic. That means to me, 11 is even more bigger than 10.6. That's what it would mean. But I'm not going to say 11 at this point. I think 10.6 makes more sense, but we'll see. So here, look at this. There are 2 events happening within the next 30 days that very likely will showcase the next major update to Final Cut Pro. And I say right here, 10.6 or 10.5.x or 11. So I don't discount that indeed we could see Final Cut 11. I just think 10.6 makes more sense at this point. I think 10.6 makes more sense. Roz says Apple Card applicable internationally. I should look. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think Canada has that same ability. So Apple Card, here's the other thing about the Apple Card. Number one is you can finance your Mac. I think it's 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. For example, I financed my beautiful iPhone 13 Pro Max on a 2-year payment. I have the cash, but why would I pay the cash when I can get the loan for free, 0% interest? I just choose that. Here's the other thing. You buy with the Apple Card from Apple, you get 3% cash back. 3% cash back on the full purchase price. As a matter of fact, when I brought my 2019 Mac Pro, they had a special that year for Christmas buying season, 6% cash back. So I immediately, as expensive as the 2019 Mac Pro, I immediately got back 6% cash back. It was like $800, something like that. $600, $700, $800 off the price. Yeah, that's a nice little chunk of change. That's something else about buying with the Apple Card. Gert says, for future developments, I expect them to go from electrical to one or more optical ports who can produce higher transfer speeds. Do you mean on the new Macs? Higher than Jean-Baptiste says hello from France. Oh, you mean, okay, when using lasers that can go up to 100 gigabit. With 40 gigabit, they may have reached the limits. Gotcha. Okay. Well, of course, they're going to have to improve things. I agree with that. That looks like something that's going to happen in the future. There's the garden. Here's the garden once again. That red tree is a dogwood tree. There's a garden in the background. You can see it behind the dogwood tree. There's a garden. Bird feeder is not very active today. Not very active at all. So, let me see. I heard there'll be lots of Final Cut Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Cinema pipeline stuff. You heard that? Where have you heard that in relation to? You mean in relation to the Apple event or in relation to what exactly? Garrett says Apple Card is only available in the United States. I'm surprised. I thought maybe Canada had it at this point. I'm surprised. They could demonstrate Logic Pro with 10,000 tracks, but that would be ridiculous. How would you even manage that? It would be a nightmare. When I record bands, I dedicate 8 to 16 tracks to the drums, and I got to keep them grouped, in groups, and submix them and stuff in Logic. I can't imagine even 100 tracks would be too much. I've gone up to 36 perhaps, but that's all. I think they will go for demoing 8K RAW video on MacBook Pros. 8K RAW. You mean ProRes RAW? ProRes RAW, perhaps. Just regular old RAW. I don't know about that. Let's just hope they fix the keyframes. Yes. You mean I like to see the keyframe editor inside of Final Cut like the one that Motion has, right? That's the one that, I often say this, the one that Final Cut Pro has is like keyframing on an Etch-a-Sketch. For those of you old enough to know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, that's what it feels like, the keyframing in Final Cut. You got to twist 2 knobs, and one goes up and one goes horizontal, and you got to get them to go. So the keyframe editor in Motion is far, far superior to the one inside of Final Cut. I'd like to see that as a drop-down item in the timeline. You click on it, it opens up and expands. You adjust your keyframes, you close it up, keyframes are adjusted. I bought my XDR display on Apple installments. She says in relation to the Apple event on the 18th. I don't think they're going to talk too much about the iPhone. The iPhone just had their own event. However, the workflow, yeah. So I've recorded multiple apps. This is curious. Multiple apps have come out and now support ProRes recording on the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. Multiple apps. Filmic Pro, a bunch of other ones. They all supporting ProRes recording, 4 flavors. Apple hasn't done it themselves yet. They announced it. They said it was in the forthcoming update to the iOS, but they don't have it out, and third-party apps do have it out. Multiple ones. Scott Gillies says, what kind of antifungal do you use to prevent for? I don't know what that is. Some kind of tree thing. I don't use anything on it. I don't use any chemicals in the yard. If I have a problem, I'll get a horticulturalist in here, if that's the right word. Want to be able to play 8K red cleanly, not much of an ask. What can you play now cleanly? Can you play 4K red cleanly on the I've never recorded in red, so I don't know. Yes, ProRes RAW, that would also connect to their iPhone 13. The 13s don't do ProRes RAW. Perhaps they connect with Atomos and their recorders. They are fantastic. I don't want to use the recorders. I like to record natively, personally. I don't understand why we can't have more motion integration into FCPX. Absolutely. I loved the way that Final Cut Pro 7 and Motion integrated. It was fantastic. You could put a motion project, you could drop a motion project into a Final Cut Pro timeline as its own clip. So a motion project, drag it into a Final Cut Pro timeline, and it plays back as an independent clip. This is in Final Cut Pro 7. And in order to edit that, you right-click on it, open in Motion, it takes you to Motion, you make your adjustments, you save, and it updates in the Final Cut Pro timeline. That was fantastic in Final Cut Pro 7. One of the many features that I missed from Final Cut Pro 7. If they did, I would be astounded if they did that in Final Cut Pro 10. Absolutely astounded. Pleasantly surprised, but still, I mean, I like being, so listen, do I like knowing everything that's coming out with Final Cut Pro? Heck no. I like Christmas. I like being surprised. So on Monday, I'm saying we're going to see a new version of Final Cut Pro. Now, with the new MacBook Pros. Will they release it? Don't know. They might be waiting for the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, which we're going to talk about in a minute. They might be waiting to release it around that time, so the Final Cut Pro team, Pro Apps team, has something spectacular to talk about at the Apple Campus presentation that they're doing. And I haven't heard, I'm thinking they might be doing the presentation from the Steve Jobs Theater. Last year, they didn't do a presentation together. The team, everybody was in their own cubicle room, a very beige-looking room, very plain room. This time, they may be on stage at the Steve Jobs Theater doing an Apple Final Cut Pro presentation, giving us the latest. Listen, even if they released Final Cut Pro 10.6 or a major update to Final Cut Pro, whatever they want to call it, on Monday, that's fine. The Final Cut Pro team, Pro Apps team, can still show us and demo stuff less than a month later, 3 weeks later. Let me think. Is that what it was? Yeah. 3 weeks later, they can still have plenty to show us. So that would not take away from the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. The Final Cut Pro, I keep saying Creative Summit, now it's the Global Summit, is free this year. Last year was $200. If you go in person, it's $1,000 typically to go in person, plus your hotel room and airfare and all that. So it's a much more expensive venture, which personally I like. I love going in person. I really like that. Eric Emmerich says Red 4K is clean, 6K is almost clean, 8K is a no-no on his 2017 iMac Pro. Okay, then in that case, so if 6K is almost clean, I expect the M1x / M2 Max, the Pro level Max, to be able to handle that. I'm presuming that Apple and Red seem to work together. They do a Red plug-in, right? So, sparkling ice. This is my fantastic Mocha Java coffee. It just came in. The shipment came in from Washington State, Mocha Java. It's my new favorite. Tony says, what are your specs, Eric? Garrett says, even with ProRes, Eric? Well, not with ProRes. He's talking about Red 4K, I guess, natively. So Red has a plug-in, don't they, for Final Cut? Don't they have a plug-in? What about Blackmagic? Do you think we're going to finally get a Blackmagic RAW plug-in for Final Cut? I'm not sure what the holdup is. Politics, I don't know. I mean, maybe, Final Cut the team is saying, well, as soon as you support ProRes RAW on your cameras, then we'll support Blackmagic RAW and Final Cut. I don't know that to be a fact. I don't know. I don't use either flavor of RAW. I just don't do that. I shoot more on this thing than anything. I shoot more on this my iPhone than anything. Then I have a GH5. I'm waiting for my GH6, which should be coming out shortly. Eric says 3 gigahertz, 10 core, 64 megabytes of RAM. Well, that's your problem right there, Eric. 64 megabytes of RAM is not nearly enough. I know you mean 64 gigabytes. And then Radeon 64, 16 gigabytes. Yes. Yep. That's a pretty good spec machine. Now, people have been complaining that Final Cuts sometimes get slow. It's been getting slow for them, so we'll see what's going on. Today, I've heard good things about liquid copper, but you won't help with leaf scorch or power play mildew, especially on a Japanese maple. Okay. I don't think we have a problem with that. I don't pay enough attention to it. Emmerich says I don't use ProRes. He records with Red RAW. He says, oops, 16 megabytes of RAM is not enough. Of course, 64. He meant 64 gigabytes, of course. Of course, I have 112 in my Mac Pro, and I never get beyond about 40% usage. Right now I have a lot of things going on. This is my screen, okay? This is my screen, 34-inch. I have a 34-inch LG monitor. It's 21:9 aspect ratio. These are all the screens that I'm looking at. Look at all these things. I got audio down here, audio levels. I got to keep track of that. I have browser open. I have windows everywhere. And I'm still at about, I have 112 gigabytes. I'm probably about, I would guess I'm using 30 or 40 gigabytes of RAM at this point. So I'm looking to get another screen when I get my MacBook Pro, bigger one. I have two screens. I have the big 34-inch and I have a smaller vertical screen I keep over there for palettes and things. So yeah, I've heard that before. Because of Red Legal, I don't think Apple ProRes RAW can be a codec on a camera, but I thought it already is. It's on the DJI camera, the drone camera. They have ProRes RAW. I don't know what the legality of it is. I don't know how important it is. Apple could buy Red with the change from Tim Cook's couch, living room couch, if they wanted to, if it was important to them. I don't think it's that important. ProRes is much more forgiving on your Mac. You might run into storage problems, yes. Tony says, that explains why my Japanese maples are dead. We're getting into a horticultural discussion. I have a 50 terabyte RAID 5. Storage is good. Something else that I will be doing is updating my RAID situation. My RAID situation now, I have a Promise RAID 5 and a G-Tech RAID 5. Both of those are Thunderbolt 2 connected via Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3 adapter to my Mac Pro. The MacBook is going to have to be able to launch those, mount those. That's going to be a pain if the M1x doesn't recognize those. That would be a real pain. I had to stick around with my Mac Pro for the time being. I guess I'm not planning on getting rid of it. I plan on having the MacBook Pro for portability, for going to, as a matter of fact, here, look at this. For going to NAB. Remember NAB? Everybody remember NAB? Here's one of my NAB cards. Exhibits pass. This, I'm not even sure what year this was. There's no year on there, but whatever year that was, that's one of my passes for NAB. Hopefully, there's going to be an NAB in person in spring. Hopefully. This is a Monocut FCP TV HQ. That is a red dogwood tree, changing leaf color for the fall around here. Next to it, interestingly, is a red maple, but the red maple is still green. Very, very interesting. There seems to be no ideal companion monitor for an M1 Mac. The LG, what they sell in the App Store is, these are no ideal options. There are no ideal options. I like LG monitors. I've had this one for years. I had this one when I had my 2017 iMac, and I used the iMac as the main screen and this LG to the side. And then when I got my Mac Pro, I put this LG, I think it's a 34, 32, I forget what it is. It's an ultra wide, 21:9 aspect ratio. But I would go for getting one with a little taller and a little longer. I don't want it super long. I got to turn my neck left and right to see things. So, but I would probably get a new one. LG, I would stick with them. Don't need the portability. It would have to be a hugely impressive machine to get me to buy one on Monday. Yeah, I probably will be getting one if they come out. I've been waiting for a long time. I have a 2019 15-inch MacBook Pro that I have that I still edit with occasionally, but I don't edit on the road that much. I live stream with it. So that one's either going to go to my girlfriend, probably. She wants to buy it. It's in great shape. It's fine. It's a top tier model, whatever that is. But I'm excited about Monday. It's all about the MacBook Pros, the new Pro level Macs, the new Pro level Apple Silicon Macs. I use tracks and Logic all the time. Okay? I don't mind tracks. I don't mind them at all. They don't bother me. So Final Cut Pro for the track, for the mindset. I use tracks in Resolve. Yeah, that's fine. Tracks don't bother me. They don't bother me. They don't challenge my workflow that much. Do I like Final Cut Pro Magnetic Timeline better? Yes. Can I work with tracks? Yes, I can work with tracks. I work with tracks and Logic all the time. When I have a band in my house, I cut up the kick drum, I cut up the snare drum into individual beats. I don't want them jumping up all over the place like they would be in Final Cut, up and down, left and right. I mean, I want them all in one track. I want them to remain all in one track. I don't want them in different places when I cut them up. So for audio, I like tracks. I prefer tracks for audio. That's what I'm used to. That's what I'm very fast at. That's what I'm very efficient at. I love the magnetic timeline. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Let's go here. So this is why I choose Final Cut Art Industry. Now on Tuesday, this is one of the reasons to get the VIP package. Tuesday, there's two simultaneous things going on at the same time. You can watch one or you can watch the other. So start your project right. Professional editor sets up Final Cut Pro, a whole bunch of these things. You guys can see all these. So you can't watch both at the same time and retain anything. I mean, I guess you could if you had two computers, but you can't retain anything. And there's the keynote. The VIP package allows you to watch the recordings after the event, with the exception of the Final Cut Pro team presentation. They usually do not let you that be recorded, so you won't be able to watch that. That you will have to watch live. That you will have to watch live. Mobile first. This is November the 10th. This is less than a month away. 20 some days away. So this is the schedule. It's free. It's free this year. Absolutely free. All your subjects are there, big picture and Apple. Here you go. Keynote or panel. Daily opening. Find the right Apple. Session B. So Friday is Apple Day. Apple Session A, 1 p.m. it looks like. Very, very interesting. I'm excited. Let me just go over here. Click on this. There's something here. Sign up. Here it is. So Apple Day, November the 12th, live from Apple Park. So there's a couple of questions I see over and over again. Number one is people are saying, what about if Apple charges a subscription for Final Cut Pro? That ain't going to happen. They're not going to charge a subscription to Final Cut Pro. It's $300. What are you subscribing for? It's $300. I mean, $300 is, you can't afford $300 for a professional level editor like Final Cut Pro. You're not a professional. Now listen, at some point they might have a subscription of something, maybe some add-on to Final Cut Pro. If they did at some point in the future wanted to do a subscription for Final Cut, I'm sure that the version we have is safe. The one we paid for. Look, they haven't charged an update in over 10 years. $299 back in 2011. Not a single penny. All the updates for 10.0, all the updates for 10.1, all the updates for 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, even 10.5, zero cost. The OS, Mac OS is free. No charge. No charge to update Mac OS. No charge to update Motion. No charge to update Logic. No charge to update Compressor. No charge for any of these updates. I don't see the advantage for Apple to start a subscription model. Is it impossible? Yes. No, I don't know if it's impossible, and I'm just kidding. At some point, they might do something, but they're not going to freeze us out, all the people that have been here all these years. We'll still be able to get our updates. We should still be able to choose. And the other thing is, if they did a subscription, it's not going to stop working if you stop paying the way Adobe products do. The other question is, if it's a huge update, will they charge for it? They certainly can charge for it if they wanted to, if they thought it was viable, if some kind of a technicality legally made said you have to charge for this. But I'm not expecting that. Would I care? Not really. Not really. That doesn't bother me. That's one of the things that doesn't bother me. $300? So what? If they want to charge, if they want to say, okay, you have the base version, if you want updates, then going forward, you got to get subscription. Whatever. It's not that expensive. Tony Oddjob says, those tutorial sessions come in handy. I was cutting a 4K camera, 6K mud wrestling video, and they really helped me out with media management. What are your thoughts on the spatial audio mixing in the future Final Cut Pro release? So how many people use spatial audio? You mean when I have my iPhone and I have my earbuds in, and if I turn my head, the audio shifts left and right. Is that what you're talking about? I don't know. I mean, that seems, if people are using it, it could be a feature in Final Cut. But I guarantee you audio is getting a reworking in the new version of Final Cut. Scott says, Toby, for the wrestling, did you use a multicam feature to do that? So I imagine he did. I always say I'd take a subscription to Final Cut Pro if they committed to regular updates. Here, how about this? If you bought Final Cut, you bought Final Cut. The version you have now, you have forever. If you want updates, you get a subscription. That doesn't bother me. It's very reasonable. It's $300 in 10 years. That's $30 a year is what it's so far. Here's what Apple should do. This is what Apple is not good at, but what they should do. They should manage your expectations. If at some point Apple was going to start charging a subscription, they should let the community know 6 months or a year in advance. They shouldn't just spring it on them. That would be a mistake. That would be a persuasion mistake. That would be a huge marketing mistake. If they ever did that, they should let people know in advance. Apple should come on the show right here. I got my hotline to Apple. This goes right to you-knows-who's office. Call up and say, hey, we're going to start a subscription in 2022. Here are some of the details we're going to do. Don't just spring it on everybody and surprise everybody. That would be a big, big mistake. Not that they haven't done that before. They did that when they launched Final Cut Pro 10 to begin with. Eric says, I use Spatial most of the time. So explain briefly in a little bar there at the bottom, Eric, exactly what is Spatial different than stereo, different than quadraphonic? You mean like behind your head, to the side, to the front? Is that what you're talking about? I totally did use the multi-feature. It's a no-brainer. I love using the color wheels to balance the mud versus skin colors. Yeah, that's true. Mud versus skin colors. That would be incredible. So what do you think Monday? We all know the MacBook Pro. Let me pull this up. We all know the MacBook Pro. Let me see. We know it's going to be an M1x/M2. We know that. What else do we have? Let me see. What's it going to look like? Is it going to look like this? Most all the reports that I've seen said that the touch bar is going away and they're returning to the function keys. So that's one of the things that's probably going to happen, right? Very, very likely. No birds today. I'm kind of surprised. Rob Fisher says, hey, Richard Taylor, good to see you. How are you regarding Final Cut Pro? I have no idea what big features would come. What do you predict? I predict a big reworking of audio. That's one of the things that I predict. A mixer of some sort? Yes, absolutely. You know, dealing with audio now with the rolls and putting them in compound clips, and then you got to double click the compound clip to adjust things and to put if you want to put a compressor or limiter or EQ on a whole bunch of clips, you got to put it on the compound clip and they got to adjust it in individual clips, and you got to go in and out, in and out. You double click a compound clip, what happens? Oh, it opens up right in the timeline in the exact place you expect it to open up so you can visually see where it is. No, it doesn't. It jumps to another timeline. Completely is out of context to what you're doing. Completely out of context. It opens up in its own timeline. Adjust things, you got to close it and then go back to the other timeline to see what it looks like. Clunk City, that's what that is. I expect to see some kind of a roles-based mixture where you can assign this role to this. I'm just going to call it a submix, whatever you want to call it. And that submix, you can apply a compressor, you can apply EQ to the typical way, you perhaps, in a fashion like Logic or Pro Tools, you just add a plug-in and adjust the plug-in and it's on all of those roles, clips in that roll, something like that. Faders. Listen, 10 years and there's no master volume control in Final Cut. There is no master volume control in Final Cut. 10 years. Why? I want a master volume control. I can adjust it up and down, whether it's for monitoring or the output. It could be both. We need a master volume control. So I expect audio to get a big reworking. That's one of the main things. Plenty of other things, little things. How about clicking and dragging on a marker to move it? How about more colors? How about color coding of clips? How about the ability to go into the effects browser window and organize effects, rename effects, drag and drop effects into a folder of your choosing. In my case, I call it RT effects, and it goes to the top. I have space RT, so it sorts to the top of the list, and I drag. When I modify something, I drag it right into there. So if I modify something in the timeline, a title or an effect, I want to drag and drop it to this master folder in the effects browser window. Yes, I know I can save master effects and stuff like that. Still clunky. I want to drag and drop in the effects browser window the same way I can drag and drop in the main browser window. Something else. Why not have something in the effects browser window where you can try out transitions, try out effects for 10 days or something? And if you want to buy it, you click on it, it takes you right to the place where you buy it, whether it's FX Factory, whether it's Motion VFX, whether it's Leno FX, any of the other Bread FX, any of the other places to sell them. Why not have demos in the effects browser itself? There's lots of things. People want better collaboration. Since Final Cut Pro came out, I keep hearing about, oh, you have to do a transfer library. I don't want to do a transfer library. I want it built in. I want the ability to collaborate with somebody built into the program. This is 2021, not 2011. The heck with transfer libraries. I want to be able to collaborate with people online, around the world, much easier and less of a clunk factor than is involved right now. I don't want third-party apps. I want it built into Final Cut Pro. Makes complete sense at this point. Final Cut Pro 7, you had iChat Theater, where you could have people on screen and they could see your timeline. I don't remember how well that worked, though. But nowadays, M1 Max, let me pull up a screen where the camera's on the person. Both of you can see the timeline. I wouldn't let a producer edit the timeline, but I want them to see it. And they say, well, try this, and I'll try that, and they can watch it in collaboration that way with another editor, for example. So spatial audio allows you to mix things similar to Dolby Atmos, and in doing so makes it easy to map to 7.1, 5.1, etc. So what's the difference between spatial audio and 7.1 or 5.1? I guess that's my question. I know what 7.1 is, and I know what 5.1 is. What is spatial audio compared to those? Atmos mainly gives you sound as a point in space above and below your ears. Okay, above and below is really cool. 5.1 and 7.1 goes around the back to the behind you and stuff. So spatial goes up and down as well. Look up, look down. That's interesting. How about integrating motion into Final Cut Pro? Yeah, better integration. I don't really need the full version of motion. I would love the ability to pull a motion project into the Final Cut Pro timeline like you could in 7. I don't know if that's possible, but that would be phenomenal. And just double click it or right click on it and it would open in motion. You do your changes in motion, save it, and it updates in the Final Cut Pro timeline. Phenomenal. A lot of people want collaboration. If Apple can go forward with collaboration in a big way, in an Apple way, that would help make inroads into Hollywood, into the Avid world. Now, that's not ultimately that important to me. I don't care how many feature films are cut on Final Cut Pro. We've already had half a dozen major films cut. It's not a top priority. I don't want Apple to spend 50% of their resources trying to get into Hollywood. If that was a top priority, they would already be there. It's not. YouTubers, independent filmmakers, of course, Hollywood filmmakers, of course, documentary filmmakers, event filmmakers. These are all very, very important. So Final Cut team spends time on those. Is Hollywood mixed in there? Yes. Is it the main top priority? No, and I don't want it to be. That's not that important to me. They've already done films in Final Cut. We've already seen it happen. So but anyway, collaboration, if Apple did it Apple's way, that could be a big boon to get them into Hollywood for people that want it. Okay, that makes sense. Spatial audio Dolby Atmos is audio 360. Now I understand. It goes above and beyond, left and right, all the way around like a 360 globe. That I understand. Thank you for explaining that. Completely understand that. So are we going to see any surprises on Monday? Or is all the news leaked out? Is all the news about the M1x Macs already leaked out? Or are there surprises? Let's just see. So here we go. 9 to 5 Mac, everything to expect from Apple's October event, M1x MacBook Pro, AirPods 3, and more. I'm excited. So here's Apple event history. Apple has held October events at an irregular pace over the years, with October events not proving as consistent as September. Well, September is the iPhone. Of course they're going to do that. But they've released things. This is the big one, M1x MacBook Pros. 8 high-performance cores, 2 high-efficiency cores available. You have 16 or 32 graphics core. I would absolutely get the 32 gigabyte graphics. Up to 64 gigabytes of RAM. MagSafe for charging HDMI SD cards, ditch the controversial touch bar in favor, and a 1080p camera. That 720p camera is so 1990s. Heck with that. Look at that nice little tennis shoe ad. The new 14, 16-inch MacBook Pros are expected to use the mini LED display technology. Yep, the Mac Mini Pro. That's what I've been calling it for quite a while. Mac Mini Pro. So Rob Fisher says, there are a couple of times where it seems Apple let some leaks happen for some reason. Maybe they will use this to really surprise the customers. I'm wondering, hardware-wise, what would be a surprise on Monday? A surprise for Final Cut Pro people, ourselves, would be the new version of Final Cut Pro. Would be, oh, by the way, here's a new version of Final Cut Pro 10.6 or 11. Or I'd hate to see 10.5.x. Even if it was a big feature update, I'd rather have them just jump to 10.6. We're long overdue. And here's a new version of Logic, 10.7. We'll see. That would be the surprise to me, pleasant surprise. Even if they just demo it, but they could release it. They did in 2016. They could be waiting for the Creative Summit to come around and let it be released around the Creative Summit. That's like, at that point, Monday, it'll be 3 weeks later. Not that big a deal. But at least they're going to show us something. Apple has already pre-announced a new version of Final Cut Pro. They announced it at the iPhone event, talking about the filmic look, the cinematic look. That would be, they've already pre-announced that, so we know something's coming. It's always coming, isn't it? As soon as one's done, the next one's ready. But Apple has pre-announced a future update to Final Cut Pro. I don't think it's just going to be a little update. So there's a comment from Jeff Arbayo talking about Hollywood. I understand some people want it to be more accepted by Hollywood. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. Is that top priority? No, it's not top priority for me at all. But I understand people that want it. I completely understand that. I'm not against it. Listen, there's people out there, and they say if you want something, a feature, and they say, oh, I don't want that. I don't want Final Cut Pro team working on that. I want my things that I want. I'm not like that. I want B-RAW support. I don't shoot B-RAW, but a lot of people want it. I want collaboration. I want perhaps better, friendlier terms with Hollywood editors to make Hollywood editors look at it, look at Final Cut Pro. We've already done the films. There's already films made. We know it can be done. But I don't want that to be the top priority for Final Cut Pro team. There's too many other nuts and bolts that are missing in Final Cut. Why can't I color clips? In DaVinci Resolve and Luma Fusion, you can color code clips. I can select a group of clips and call them all red. I can color them green, blue, purple, whatever I want. And I can sort by those colors. In the sort field, search field, I can put blue, and all the blue clips come up. When I'm doing a long podcast, Final Cut Pro Radio, I do it in Logic. Hour and a half long, 2 hours long. First off, I have a scrolling timeline, so my audio, so the timeline stays in the center, and the playhead stays in the center, and everything scrolls, so my audio waveforms, which I'm looking at constantly, are in the center of the screen. Not the playhead goes over here, and all of a sudden it goes, bye-bye. Bye-bye, playhead. You're off the screen. I have no idea where the heck you are, like Final Cut Pro does. I have the ability to color code clips. So if I have 3 or 4 guests on Final Cut Pro Radio, I can color code a section of Sam Messman. And I can color code a section if Brad Olson's on it. This is a section of Brad clips. This is a section of Sam clips. All I do is select them, hit Option C to bring up the color palette, click on it, and all those clips are that color. So I can visually see exactly what my timeline, how it's divided. Color of this, green, yellow, orange, whatever. It's very, very nice. I wish we could color code clips. A welcome Final Cut Pro surprise would be node-based color grading similar to DaVinci Resolve. Do you think node-based? Do you think Final Cut Pro is going to ever do that? I don't know. Is that easier? Is that harder? They want to be simple too. A surprise kind of would be if Apple listened to the users, implement our wishes, but in the better Apple way, just as time happened a while ago. They do listen to the users. That doesn't mean you're going to get everything that you want. They do listen to the users. The more something comes in, it gets up higher on their list to implement. If Apple prioritizes Hollywood, feature update may take even longer to be rolled out. They're not going to prioritize Hollywood. Are they paying attention to Hollywood? Yes. Is Hollywood is Hollywood one of the dozen or 24 top things that they work with? Yes, it's mixed in there. Is it number one? No, and I don't want it to be number one. They dropped the X in Final Cut Pro, so I guess Final Cut Pro 11 will be the next thing, a big major release. Well, they dropped the X, but they dropped the X in Mac OS X, Mac OS 10, and they dropped the X at 10.5. 10.5 is not FCPX 10.5. 10.5 is just FCP. They dropped the X last year. So 11, could be. Philip Allen says, I always like the new color areas in Final Cut Pro. I'm not sure color areas. You mean the roles? I think they need better colors, more like Logic has. A controlled palette is fine, but something a little brighter. Some of the colors I can't even distinguish very well. Here we are, backyard. Oh, there's a bird flew by. My new favorite coffee is Peet's Mocha Java. I just finished a cup here. Right before we went live, I got a delivery of Peet's from Washington State, and I have their Arabian Mocha Java that I use. Now, I use a very strong coffee, 2 big scoops of coffee per cup, and then I lighten it up with half and half. So it's more like chocolate milk. So who else is excited about Monday? Am I the only one? Am I the only one here that's excited about Monday? I've been waiting for these MacBook Pros forever. So interestingly, look at this. I like this. This is the web page. This is Twitter. We're live on Twitter. We're live on, let me see. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Facebook. Where else are we live? YouTube, of course. We're live on YouTube. And Twitch TV even has a thing. We're live on Twitch TV too, so 4 different platforms simultaneously. I use Restream.io in conjunction with Ecamm Live. I'm a big proponent of Ecamm Live. So what else is going on here? Let me see. October event. We did the October 16th event. FMC is hosting a free Final Cut Pro Summit. Free. It's free this year. It's phenomenal. And this is what I always say. As a eternal Final Cut Pro optimist, I expect the 10.6 update to Final Cut Pro to be huge. Other people are saying it's not going to be huge and everything. It's just like, I don't know. I don't understand people who have such low expectations of things. My expectations are high, and sometimes they're on, sometimes they're not on. But having low expectations and having them met is not the way I go through life. I don't want low expectations and having them met. I want high expectations and having them met. Sometimes disappointed, that's fine. But I don't want low expectations. My expectations way down here and having them met. That's not the way I run my life. I have high expectations from the Final Cut Pro team. So what are you all excited about for Monday? Who's buying a MacBook Pro? Probably 16-inch, at least 32 gigabytes of RAM, biggest graphic, beefiest graphic that comes out. Probably I'll get a 2 terabyte SSD. The 1 terabyte I have on the current machine, now I could use a 2 terabyte. I like to just grab that MacBook Pro and go sometimes, knowing I have plenty of space on it. I don't have to go, where's my SSD? Where's my whatever. Now, one thing I do hope, I do have this coming out. I do have this. I just bought this. This is the OWC Thunderbolt 4. This is the Thunderbolt 4 dock. It's got 96 watts of power supplied right here. 96 watts of power supplied there. USB 2 card reader. That's the one you connect to your computer. And then you have 3 additional Thunderbolt 4 ports, Ethernet, 1 gig E, and you have 3 USB-A ports. I think these are 3.2, so they're the fastest USB available. I'm not sure how it's going to work with the new MacBook Pros. I don't know. But I got this from my 2019 MacBook Pro because when I live stream right now, the MacBook Pro will not hold a charge. It'll drain in 1 hour. Even with everything plugged in, I have 3 cameras, audio things, I have another external monitor, and it won't hold the charge. It takes 1 hour and the battery will be completely drained, even plugged in. I tested this OWC dock out. It maintains the battery level. It won't charge the battery with all this equipment hooked up to the MacBook Pro. This is 2019. It won't charge the battery, but the battery does not drain. It stays at whatever I plug it in at, 86%. The other day, it stayed at 86% for 20 minutes, running full blast. 3 cameras expecting. So Rob says, I have low expectations regarding Final Cut Pro because that is how also little things excite me. Isn't the same in life. There is one that saves, and I will buy one. I'm not the kind of person that has low expectations for anything in my life. I mean, maybe I have low expectations for the media because they're just they just create problems that don't exist and stuff. But no, things that excite me. I'm a big Final Cut Pro proponent. I don't follow Final Cut Pro blindly, but I certainly follow Final Cut Pro. I really, really like it. This is why I'm doing these live streams. This is why I've been doing Final Cut Pro Radio. We have over 1.2 million podcast downloads. We're in year 6. We're going to start year 7 in January. Final Cut Pro Radio. No breaks. Never had a break. Never took off for 6 months. Never took off for 18 months. Continuously putting out the audio podcast. And now the live stream. I'm doing the live stream. Do you like Final Cut Friday? I mean, if it's popular, it seems like it's pretty popular. I'll just keep on doing them. But if I do one during the week, I might not do a Final Cut Friday that week. But other than that, I'm going to be doing one. But yeah, my expectations for Final Cut Pro are always high. My expectations are high for the team, for the updates. Have I been disappointed? Yeah, sure. But that doesn't affect my high expectations. They're still up there. I still expect good things from the Final Cut Pro team. They've had a lot of time to work on this update, to get it solid, to get it working right. Brand new MacBook Pros. I'm excited. Anything else before we go? One of the other things I see people say all the time, if Final Cut doesn't do X, I'm going to go to Resolve or I'm going to go to Premiere. Why? If you've paid for Final Cut Pro, you don't have to pay anymore so far. You still have it. I use DaVinci Resolve. I use Final Cut as my first NLE, and I use LumaFusion. Those are my 3 that I use. I like Resolve. I really like LumaFusion. I think it's a fantastic NLE. I have too many years in the Final Cut Pro. Why would I abandon that? Because I'm mad about something? Yeah. That's not the way I guess I look at life. I look at life a little differently. I have high expectation for the team. There's 2 things. Monday, the new MacBook Pros. They're going to demo a new version of Final Cut Pro. I'm fairly confident about that. When it's going to be released, I don't know. In 2016, they released it the day of the Apple event. They released 10.3, which was brand new. They introduced it at the Apple event, and it was in the App Store that day. This time, but in 2016, the Creative Summit was the next day. I think it was Thursday, and the Creative Summit started on Friday. But I think this time, the event's on Monday. The Creative Summit's 3 weeks after that. So any time between showing it to us at the event, they could release it at any point leading up to the Creative Summit. They might wait for the Creative Summit itself to release it. That's fine. Show us, though. Isn't there a difference between low expectations and good? I met the team. They are awesome. And as they are, I'm passionate about Final Cut Pro. I don't have low expectations for things I'm passionate about. I just don't. If I'm passionate about something, music. I'm very passionate about electric guitar, rock music. I really like it a lot. I don't have low expectations for the bands that I like their next album. I have high expectations for it. I'm just not the kind of person that has low expectations. For things that I'm really excited about. I have a low expectation for things that deserve low expectations. I don't expect, like I said, some things I have low expectations for, but I'm not passionate about them. But Final Cut Pro, I'm passionate about. I have high expectations. So, there we go. Final Cut Friday. What do you think? Do we like it? Final Cut Friday? We'll do as many as we can. I'm not going to hit every Friday, but I'll hit as many as I can. Sometime between 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. Last week, the first one we had was 3 o'clock. We'll see how that goes. Next week, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about on Monday. So we'll see. Stay tuned for that. Terj says, yeah, keep those Final Cut Fridays running. That's what I'm going to try to do. One thing about podcasting is to come out on the same day, the same hour as much as possible. That's what I'm going to try to do with Final Cut Friday. What was it? Last week I was sitting there and saying, hey, it's Friday. I haven't done any shows all week. Hey, Final Cut Friday. And it just popped into my head. I said, okay, there you go. Final Cut Friday. It works. It sounds like something. And as long as people show up, we had a lot of watchers today, a lot of comments, a lot of great comments. Thank you, all the listeners, all the watchers. Thank you for stopping by, helping make this a success. And your comments are very welcome, of course. Thanks. Final Cut Pro is great. Absolutely is great. It absolutely is great. Resolve is great. I like Resolve a lot too. And LumaFusion. LumaFusion is fantastic. Final Cut Pro on the iPad. Do I think it's going to be here some point? Yes. But the team, whoever's in charge of that team, Final Cut on the iPad, you have years. LumaFusion is years ahead of you. You're going to have a lot of catch-up. Now, could Apple buy LumaFusion and start from there? We've talked about that on the show. I've had Terry and Chris from LumaFusion on, and I've talked about that specifically. I said, what are you doing with the Apple buyout? And they said, well, we haven't seen anything. We have to look at whatever they offer us. So could Apple buy them out and start from there? Yeah, that would be something. But LumaFusion is a great application. All right, one more look at the backyard here before we head out. That's a dogwood tree. I saw a bird run by. There's going to be leaves and leaves everywhere out there. You can see them under the one tree. Anyway, everyone, I'm going to head out of here now. I think we're going to, if you have any more comments, go ahead and say them now. Let's see what we have. Oh, hey, don't forget, subscribe over there at YouTube. Don't forget. There you go. Subscribe. And put the notifications on. That's the best way to be notified when I go live. YouTube.com/Richard Taylor TV. That'll be notified whenever I go live. If there's a pop-up for being live, that's the best place to go. So, anything else about Monday you want to talk about before we go? I think I've covered everything. Let me just check here. We've covered Uncut Live, M1x, TV Live, Pro Editors, Macbook Pro. Oh, this is something interesting. It's something interesting. I was curious about that. I'm not that familiar with this, but Apple joins Blender Development Fund, Mac OS back as supported platform. So Blender is a 3D kind of a thing. Is that what's going on there? And Apple apparently is back with that. Apple has joined the Blender Development Fund as a patron member. So, that's interesting. Who's going to the Creative Summit? Raise your hand. I'll be there for sure. In the chats and at some of the places and hanging out, they're going to have all of the different things going on for that, different rooms and whatever. One thing about the summit, in the past, Apple has introduced major versions of Final Cut Pro around the summit. The day before in 2016, 10.3. 1 year later, 2017, at the summit, 10.4. The worldwide debut of 10.4 was at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. 1 year after that, in 2018, 10.4.4 came out at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. So that's 2016, 10.3, 2017, 10.4, 2018, 10.4.4. Nothing happened in 2019. And of course, last year in 2020 was the disruption. The whole world was disrupted. And the summit went virtual. This year it's virtual again. But I'm expecting, if they talk about Final Cut Pro 10.6 on Monday, if they release it on Monday, between Monday and the Creative Summit, I expect a new version of Final Cut Pro to be out. I'm just going to say, I'm calling it 10.6, whatever it's called, 10.11, 10.5. 10.5 point something would be disappointing. It's got to be 10.6. That's what I'm saying. 11 would be above my expectations. I'm expecting 10.6. If they went to 11, that raises the expectations for Final Cut Pro, for me. My expectations are high for things that I care about. I don't want my expectations low. I don't want my expectations low and have them met. I want my expectations high and have them met. If they're just sometimes disappointed, that's what it has to be. I still want my expectations high. All right, everyone, I think that's going to be it for today. Listen, everybody that tunes in, thank you very much. Hit the subscribe button over there at Final Cut Pro TV. Richard Taylor TV over there at YouTube. Hit the subscribe buttons over there. That's the best way to be notified when I go live. All right? Absolutely. All right, everyone, I'm going to get started on my weekend, and I will see everybody the next time we go live, which is going to be pretty soon. It's going to be pretty soon.